Hi, hello there, my name is Evelyn and today I will be doing my March/April book wrap-up video as well as a brief TBR for the month of May. And let me preference this video by saying if you can hear any little clickings or or grunts or like oh craps under their breath, it is my girlfriend Callie. She's playing Fortnite right now, so just kind of ignore that. Anyways, without further ado, let's go ahead and just jump right into it. So the first book we're going to talk about is The Naked Lunch by William S. Burroughs. It is a collection of short stories written when the author was amidst of a heavy drug addiction. I sadly had to DNF this book because it felt like I was having a stroke while reading it. I don't think I knew that it was a collection of short stories. I thought it was a lucid story. It is not. It's a great insight into the paranoia and chaos that comes with drug abuse. You really feel that and you can really see that. I just had to stop reading because I didn't know what he was talking about half the time. It's very confusing. The things that are talked about in this book are the highest level of disturbing, so maybe kind of look into it if you decide to read it. I don't know. Maybe I'll give this another shot in the future. Can't be too certain about that. The next book that we are going to talk about is this Fleetwood Mac dupe of a book that is Daisy Jones and the Six. If you don't know what this book is about, it is about the rise and abrupt fall of a 70s rock star band that is told through kind of a thin and now documentary style where each of the characters have their own lines. There are things that I loved about this book, including like the 70s. I love the 70s. That's probably my favorite time period of 70s, the style, the everything, the rock star-esque. That was what I loved about this book, and I had really high hopes for it. Another thing that I loved about this book was kind of the portrayal of memories. Everybody kind of has their own, recollection of what really happened, of like this happening and this not happening. So I did love that about that, but there are also things that I hated about that kind of influenced my opinion. For starters, the formatting is just very disconnected to me. I just couldn't connect with the format. It's, again, like each character has their own lines. I couldn't really get into the storytelling, and I think this book would have been maybe a little bit better if it was told through like a first person point of view instead of kind of the documentary style. But I get what she was going with. It's a unique way to write. It was just very disconnected for me. Also, Billy and Daisy kind of got on my nerves a little bit. Their egos were just very overbearing and I couldn't really handle it. It was more about them instead of the actual bands. Everybody, like the other band members, were kind of blah and they were kind of to be this huge deal, and I just didn't get it. I don't know. But in this book we get forbidden love and right person wrong time, so that's pretty cool. A lot of people love this book, and with that being said, I'm just gonna say right now, everybody is entitled to their own opinions, okay? That is the great world of self-expression. So if you really love the book, tell me why you loved it. I couldn't get into it. I sadly gave this book 2 stars. The next book that I read was The Profound Coraline. I really loved this book. I really loved the movie, so I felt like I had to read the book. There are slight differences between the movie and the book, but not like huge significant differences. There are some really cool illustrations. That was kind of scary, but there are really cool illustrations in this book, and it's a very short read. I got this done in less than an hour. Coraline was, of course, a 4 for me. Next book that I read for March that I ended up loving. I didn't think I was gonna love this book, but I loved it. It is The General and His Labyrinth. This book is a historical / biographical fiction about a South American general named Simone Bolivar, who was trying to leave the country due to political tensions at the time. The general is reaching the end of his life while also having these moments of reflection on his past. It reminded me of like grandpa telling stories about his youth. It's a slow start, but I soon found myself devouring the writing. Marquez does a beautiful job of just capturing the grittiness of the general. The prose in this book are magnificent. I definitely added more of his books on my to be read list for the future. This book was a solid 4.5 stars for me, and I absolutely love this cover. I mean, look at that. Like, don't you just want to like read a book there? It looks so peaceful. The next book that I read was Green Mansions by W.H. Hudson. This is about a European refugee who seeks asylum in the jungles of Venezuela. While staying with a tribe of indigenous people, our main character encounters this wood nymph that is the last of her tribe. What I thought was going to be a jam-packed adventure book about different cultures and traditions soon turned into a complex romance. Yeah, and that's just not what I was going for. That's not what I thought this was gonna be. I have nothing against romances. I'm trying to get into them. Overall, while reading this, I kind of just found myself dreading reading that, and that's not a good thing. That's not what you want in a book. But I will say there are some pretty passages, and there's also themes of deforestation that are kind of important, but I just couldn't get over the weird romance thing that goes on in it. So this is a solid 2 stars for me. This cover is also very cool. The next book is also a fan favorite that I just couldn't love. It is Normal People by Sally Rooney. This novel follows 2 characters from different social groups as they explore their feelings for one another. I wanted to love this book given the subject matter. We've kind of all been there where we kind of like a person that we shouldn't like, you know. I've soon found the characters kind of annoying and repetitive and not rooting for them at whatsoever. I was kind of like, y'all just need to break up and go y'all separate ways. That being said, I don't understand how this book is portrayed as a romance novel. To me, it was more so a representation of how easily lust can be mistaken for love, especially in this day and age. A lot of people find this a great romance book, and I just couldn't get it. I'm sorry. You know, maybe I'm not the biggest fan of romance. Maybe I'm just a hater. Who knows? But this book was also a solid 2 stars. Let's shed some light on the situation and talk about a book that I absolutely loved. This is How to Behave in a Crowd. Callie just got a victory royale and she's very excited about it. But this is How to Behave in a Crowd by Cami Bordas. This novel is about a kid named Isidore who is the youngest of 6 siblings. When the family is faced with a tragedy, Isidore tries to better understand him as well as himself, while also attempting to run away. I would classify this book as literary fiction, coming of age, and also on the verge of dark comedy. I am a big fan of when books have, you know, overly unique and quirky characters, and this book is full of them. I also love this book because it plays on the many faces of grief and how everyone has their own way of dealing with those feelings. This was a 5-star for me, for sure. That was the last book of March. Now moving on to April. I started off April with a absolute banger, and that is Weaveworld by Clive Barker. Without giving too much away, This book is about a society that has been woven into a rug. There are bad guys that are after this rug, and then there are good guys trying to protect it while also figuring out what it is. This was my first true fantasy novel, and I'm so glad it was because I absolutely loved it. I devoured it. The writing wasn't too complex. It's very easy to digest, and I was interested throughout the whole entire novel. It just kept exceeding my expectations. I highly recommend this book. This was a 5-star. The world building, the details, the everything, it just blows my mind how someone can come up with this. And that goes for any fantasy books that come up with like a whole other world. That I love, so I'm definitely gonna read more of those. The next book that I read was Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. It is a thriller slash mystery. 25 years ago, Maggie, who is the main character, her father wrote a book about why they left their newly bought house in the middle of the night. He wrote a book and it got very famous. Now Maggie has traveled back to that house to fix it up to get ready for it to sell. And she has also gone back there to try to figure out what is true and what is false about the novel that her father wrote. So we get a little bit of two timelines. We get the father's book, and then we get Maggie as she starts to put the pieces together. The plot twists in this book actually got me. I'm usually good at kind of seeing where books are gonna go. I'm good at predicting books, and I love books that can throw me completely off, and this book threw me completely off. I give this book 3.5 stars, and yeah, this was a good little fast read. It's very easy as well to get through. Yeah. Chapstick break. Assistant please, chapstick break. Okay, shh, quiet on set, please, thank you. The next book is Glamorama by Bret Easton Ellis. This book follows a very cocky male model in the 90s as he gets involved with a horrifically dangerous group of people. This book kind of starts off on the slower side. Things don't really get interesting until about halfway. Definitely read the trigger warnings before starting this book because the subject matter is very dark and heavy, as well as his other books. This is the author of American Psycho, so yeah, if you read that book then you kind of already know where this is going. This book ultimately had me on a roller coaster of very, very confused emotions, and by the time I reached the end I was even more confused than the beginning. The way Ellis cleared things up in this book is the most complex and confusing way to clear things up I have ever read. I still kind of don't really know what happened, what was real and what was not real. The thing I found about Ellis, I've read a few of his other books as well, I just feel like he kind of gives up with writing a little bit halfway throughout his books and kind of gets a little bored maybe and just kind of ends it there. I don't know if that makes any sense, but this book was a solid 2 stars for me. The cover is really cool though. It has a lot of prominent figures of the 90s on it. Let me kind of take off the book cover, but as you can see like Kate Moss, Tyra Banks, Keanu Reeves, Winona Ryder, a lot of people on there. The next book that I read was The Strange Library by Haruki Murakami, and I mainly picked this up because of the very cool artwork in this book. I mean, let me just show you how it opens. It's very, very cool. So let me show you the artwork that's in this book. That's very cool. And like there's a piece of artwork on every page. There's a strange library where the librarian eats kids' brains. This book plays on the nostalgia of a children's book, but it's definitely not for children. I think it would send like mixed messages, you know, to children, like don't go to libraries, the librarian's gonna eat your brains. That's not a good message to send to children. I give this book, I think I gave it like 3 stars. It's very short. I finished it in less than an hour, but I mainly bought it for the artwork. The last book that I read for April, which is actually a reread for me, but it is The Stranger by Albert Camus. It tells about a seamlessly ordinary Frenchman who finds himself in this situation that there's only one way out of. This time that I read it, I understood it way better than the first time I read it. It is a simple written story while also conveying a deep sense of the absurdity of life, and I think everyone should just read this book at least once in their lifetime. This was a solid 5 stars for me, and I annotated the heck out of this book this time around. That was all the books that I read for March and April. I'm just gonna briefly cover the books that I'm going to read for May. Starting with the book that I'm currently reading and the most excited for is Good Omens by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman. Gaiman? I'm not sure. So far it's pretty good. It's very funny, and we'll see how this goes. The next one that I'm gonna read for April is The Rainbow by D.H. Lawrence. Look at this cover first of all. I don't know if you can see that. That is beautiful. I'm pretty sure this is a classic novel. I think it got banned as soon as it got published in like 1915 because it like covers sexuality and stuff, so excited for that. After that, I'm going to be reading Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Very classic novel. I've watched the movie before, but I haven't read the book, and I found it at Goodwill, as you can tell by the half-peeled sticker on it. I found it at Goodwill, and I was like, might as well, you know, I think everybody needs to read this book, or so they say. The next one, I will be giving Taylor Jenkins Reid another shot at being an author that I read. I don't know. I loved her Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, but I just didn't vibe with Daisy Jones. So we're gonna see how this goes. But this is Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Next, we have The Rules of Attraction, which is another Bret Easton Ellis book, which is gonna probably be my last. I don't think I like him as an author, no offense, but yeah, this is a short one, so hopefully it won't take me too long. And the last book that I plan on reading for May is the very controversial novel Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov. There's very mixed reviews over this book. They either hate it or they love it, so I can't wait to see if I love it or hate it. It's very disturbing. I would definitely recommend looking up the trigger warnings for this book as well. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. I personally love reading, and not a lot of people in my immediate friend group, or you know, not a lot of people I know in general read, so there's not a lot of people I can talk to, and no offense, Callie, I love you, but she just doesn't like to read, and that's okay. She likes to play Fortnite. That's totally fine, to each their own. But I just have no one to talk to about these books, so by doing this, I hope to introduce my way into the booktube community, because I recently got down the rabbit hole that is booktube, and I absolutely love it. Yeah, so please take me in. Please like me. Thank you for watching. I've said that like 20 times now. Yeah, this is what I want to do. I love books. I love talking about books, even though it's very frustrating because I have ADHD and I can't focus. And I get very frustrated with myself if I don't get it right the very first time. Anyways.